Welcome to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse, where host Michael Leiner talks to the best in the business about community, impact, business, and donuts. Here's your host, Michael Leiner.
Welcome back to another episode of the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse. I have a special guest today, somebody who doesn't exactly fit with the disability part of what we do, but does definitely fit with the overall message, which is trying to have local business leaders and people that are, always next level thinkers. So I'm really excited today to have my next door neighbor, Joe. Sounds like a little, doodle podcast, but Joe Bradley, who certainly fits with, the big time thinking element of our podcast. Thank you so much for being on here today, Joe.
It's an absolute honor, my friend.
Yeah. So tell us, give us some background. Tell us about who you are. What's your business acumen that makes you worthy of sitting at a table with me?
Wow, what a question. I think at the end of the day, I'm a humble sales guy. At the end of the day,
okay.
But I've been in the ingredient business for almost 2 decades. I have a company called Step Change Innovations, 2-year-old company. We're a consulting firm for ingredient companies.
Yeah.
And it is a extremely fun, rewarding industry to be in. It's kind of under the radar in a lot of respects, but it's incredibly important considering the focus on health, wellness, and longevity.
Now, before you started Step Change, you were part of the management team of another local company before.
Sure. I was senior vice president of a probiotic company called Ganeden.
Yeah.
Ganeden was a pioneer in the whole probiotic craze for food, beverage, and dietary supplements. We sold the business back in 2017 to Kerry Group out of Ireland. It was a roller coaster time. When we started the business, I think the average consumer couldn't tell, if you said probiotics, they looked at you like, huh? What is that? But we were really, cowboys, pioneers in terms of, building that business up. When we started, again, the idea of putting a probiotic in anything outside of yogurt was seen as ludicrous, and nobody wanted to work with us. Learned a lot of lessons. Had a lot of doors slammed in my face, and by the time we sold the business, we were in over 2,000 products globally, and really, you could go down and I guess this is rewarding, and it led to my next business. I mean, you could go down any grocery aisle in the country, dare I say the world at this point, and see a product that we developed or an application that we pioneered featuring probiotics.
And this is Ganeden?
This was Ganeden. And really, Step Change is taking the lessons that we learned from Ganeden,
yeah,
and applying that on a grander scale. The way I would describe Step Change is a sales accelerator for ingredient companies. So we work with, some of the largest ingredient companies in the world to, venture-backed startups, all with helping them develop programs and strategies for commercialization of their new ingredient, or in some cases, black sheep ingredients that nobody wants, a la the what I learned from the probiotic industry.
So I want to rewind for a second to something that you just mentioned, which honestly, and you and I sit and talk hours a week, which is always, I'm lucky to be able to have you as a neighbor to bounce my ideas off of and that kind of stuff. But I didn't know about all the no's that you've heard. And, when I listen to a lot of business leaders, people, they always say that, for example, real strong people are built as paper boys or people who had to go door-to-door salesmen, because you'll hear no 90 times before you hear one yes. And you've just got to be able to get excited about those no's. What was that like? So when people are slamming doors in your face or telling you no, what were you selling and why were they saying no at the time?
So it's funny. I was in my call it mid-20s when I started with Ganadin. And we really, we all, the team that came together, we all came from different industries, but I had a biotech background. I was doing medical sales, and we all had a certain arrogance. We thought, rightly or wrongly, that we were going to be, once we hit the scene, we were going to sell this business in 2 years,
Right.
2, 3. Oh, we're going to put this in Cheerios, and then we're going to sell the company. I mean, that's what we thought. And I remember my first trade show. I was in Anaheim at the Natural Products Expo West show.
Okay.
And it was, we had a booth. The booth was set up. We were riding high. We thought we were going to dominate. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I wish I had the gentleman's name. Older gentleman walks up, asks us what we're doing, and I give him the elevator pitch, and he looked at me, and he said, "Son, I'm going to give you some advice." I've told the story 1,000 times, but I'll never forget it.
The first time you're telling it to me, and I thought I knew everything about you.
And he said, "Son, I'm going to give you some advice. Go print out your resume. There's thousands of companies here, but I guarantee you, you seem like you got a lot of energy. You seem like a good kid. Somebody will hire you at the end of the show because you'll never be successful putting probiotics in food."
How often do you think about that?
It motivated me. And I'm not kidding. There were, for the first 4 years of Ganadin, that almost seemed like a daily occurrence where something like that would happen. And it wasn't just it was, you're going to contaminate, and I won't get all technical in terms of the why and the science behind it, I won't get into a sanitation discussion with you in terms of why, but there was every time it was one step forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
It seemed like, and there was always a reason why, But to the credit, and this was a great lesson I learned. When you say you're going to do something, you do it, and and that was a great lesson from my 2 mentors at Ganadin in terms of how they handled those situations for me, and there was no, all of the, any negativity that we faced, we had the team and almost an open checkbook. Like, okay, if whatever it's going to cost for us to do the right thing, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And eventually we started, we just started plucking away, and we found early adopters, I call them emerging brands that were eager to innovate. And we supported those emerging brands as if they were General Mills or Kellogg's. But a funny thing happened as they started to grow. Eventually, those brands were acquired by the General Mills and Kellogg's of the world, and then the rest really started taking off for us. So I think if you do the right thing and you have a principled approach to business, you're going to be successful.
In that prior experience, and I think you said it took like 4.5 years for you to really see change and breakthrough. Was it educating? Was it work that you were affirmatively doing, educating people about the benefits of the probiotic ingredients that changed things, or was it just an environmental change where all of a sudden other people started doing the same thing and it became more commonplace?
It wasn't more commonplace. For us, it was a constant. We were constantly building, for instance, our story, our clinical studies, doing and constantly proving out the different. We had to show the foundation of the business was probiotics in products outside of yogurt, which was not considered viable.
Right.
It was probiotics are live organisms. These are any application that we did was met with a bit of, is that snake oil? Is that you can't do that? That's not viable. So we had to prove out those concepts through, doing different applications, doing shelf life studies, doing clinical studies on the actual strain of bacteria. And this takes time. Doing safety dossiers, cleaning protocols takes time. And again, anything that we knew, I remember meeting with some very big CPG companies, and they basically, hey, if you get this, and this, we'll consider this using this ingredient.
CPG, is that
Consumer Products Group?
Okay. So let me ask you this. So, we talked about all the no's that you had to hear and all the, the culture shift that happened to where towards the end at Ganeden before it sold, you could find something that Ganeden had touched anywhere you went. But then you started this business after Ganeden sold, which is very different. You called it you're a consultant, you're a growth accelerator. When did you start to see that being an opportunity, and what kind of opened that up?
So really, the genesis of Step Change started, I almost want to say before the sale of Ganeden. It was circa 2015, 2016, where I would get calls from different ingredient companies, professionals asking me, all of a sudden it was, hey, how did you do this? Or, it wasn't just come work for us. It was, can you help us? How did you persevere? Or how did you get, what was the strategies? What did you guys do? What was the secret sauce?
Yeah.
And, really, I'd say that's when it started. I knew, so I was at Carey Group for a few years, and then during, I knew during COVID that this was something that, was in my bones.
Yeah.
It was a dream of mine to do this, and I knew, it was just a matter of when, and
So, and I know, for example, you just got back you were in Switzerland last week or the week before, at just one of your industry trade shows. But I'm thinking about the story that you told me earlier about the old man, and you were like the kid at the trade show, and he's telling you to go find other jobs. To now, what's it like for you when you're in that arena now? Are you still selling something?
That never leaves you.
Yeah.
And I think the moment it leaves you, that's a problem. I think I try to approach every conversation I have with a bit of humility and humbleness.
Yeah.
Because I know, again, that person is still there. I don't necessarily see myself as this, leader.
It's very similar.
But I can tell you, for me, and I'll just use most recent when I was in Switzerland, it was an incredible, I walked out of those 3 days in Switzerland and the meetings that we had, just knowing that we're on the right track, that ingredient companies need help, that we are, what we're doing, we have a really thoughtful approach in terms of how we work. Our team is first class. It's in a lot of respects, it's the Ganeden team. But we've added additional talent that is just, again, world class. And I'm only as good as, I'm not. If I'm ever the smartest person in a room, I'm in the wrong room. And I've said that a lot, but I'm incredibly grateful for the team that I have.
So there's like so many different paths I want to go down with you, but when you were at Ganeden, when you told that you were a senior vice president, I know you were, one of the top senior people there, but now with Step Change, even though some of the faces are the same, a lot of the faces are the same, this is your show. This is something that you started. What's it like for you to be putting something together now that's really your imprint? Psychologically, how is that?
It is the most rewarding experience. I think anyone starting a business, it starts with the people and the culture you create. And for me, having an openness, creating that environment where people want to come to work and allowing them the freedom. And I think this is important too. I'm not a micromanager. I want people to feel free to create. It's a very creative. I know it might sound strange, but when you're dealing with product development and dealing with different ingredients and all sorts of different applications, that you want people to feel free, and allowing them the freedom to create, the freedom to make mistakes. I think that's so important. Yeah. And again, I couldn't be happier or more grateful for the team that followed me and allows me to do this.
What skill do you wish that you had that you still feel like you need to develop on as you grow into like this new venture?
For me, it's not necessarily a skill. For me, you can't do it all.
Delegation.
And it's, you want to do everything.
Yeah.
Especially when you're looking at opportunities, and you have to be selective. We had this discussion last week. We have to be selective with who we work with. We can't. We're still, I'd say we're past startup mode, but we have to be mindful of, it's more important that we do great work and deliver for the client and the customer, and deliver at speed, and not, you can't handle everything. I think the other skill for me is taking a moment to reflect. I'm pretty high energy, pretty go, and taking a deep breath, enjoying the moment, and letting things work through its pace.
So just hearing you talk about this, and it hits me a lot when we talk, just because I am very fortunate to have somebody that house is right next to mine that I can just walk over and run an idea past you. Or when we talk about what's going on in our work lives, there's often like so many similarities. And even though, the type of business that you have is so different from mine, when I hear you talking, the lessons are the same for anybody who is starting a disability practice or really starting any kind of business. Delegation, and the importance of, for you, it's picking ingredients that you want to, work with. For us, it's picking which clients we want to take on. When I was a young attorney, there was this natural inclination to, if somebody's willing to sign my representation forms, here you go, sign them up, because I don't know when the phone's going to ring again. But you really don't start differentiating yourself as, somebody who's good at what you do until you say no to people that you can't really help when you know that going on. And, with the management side, just when it was just me and two, 1.5 really paralegals, I had to do everything. But if you want to get to the next level, you've got to be pushing things on to other people and letting other people's strengths come through.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I think there's I was thinking about this the other day. I think, you never know if you're going to be a good leader, and to just say, hey, I'm a great leader, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think you have to approach it with a sense of confidence, but also a tremendous amount of self-awareness. Yeah. And you use the word delegate. And even the team that I have now, as they're building their teams, it's really important. I think that's the one word I use. You have to offset that. It's on you to delegate responsibilities out and not hoard them, because and not get too tied to. We have one of my colleagues says, every project is her baby. Well, that's not a good approach.
Right.
We have to be more transactional, and we have to be more astute to what can go wrong and delegating things out. It's more important to get the work done than it is to,
I'm curious, what's a win for you? So as you go through your day, what happens? What is a win for Step Change? What happens that you guys are like, yeah, what gets everybody excited?
Revenue. I mean, we're still a business. We get excited by closing deals.
Yeah.
And to me, it's personal. When companies sign up with us, they're signing up for, to me, there's that sense, like, we trust you.
Yeah.
We trust your team. We need help, and we are putting our faith and our money
right
to help us. So that's a great motivator. And again, we're not just, I call us a consulting firm or a sales growth accelerator. The programs we're not just saying, hey, do this. We're not showing them. We're actually doing. And a lot of the methods that we're implementing are really unique for our industry and outside of the box. So I am, and we're proving them out. And that's also really exciting too. So just to see, some of the hypotheses that you've put together in action and working is really cool too. So,
yeah.
But motivation is, I think if you don't come into work every day with some level of motivation, what's the point?
Oh, totally.
Go do something else.
Yeah.
Find something that does motivate you.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's simple. I talk a lot with my team about emotional purposes.
Explain that.
Emotional purposes, you have to have something that drives you. And everyone has their own different emotional purpose. It may be financially driven. It may be personally driven. Who knows? Nobody can. The only person that can tell that to you. I think you have to dig into that, understand that, and then I think that opens up the door to get the best work out of yourself.
Do you ever struggle, or do the people on your team ever struggle to identify what their emotional purpose is?
I'm sure they do, but I hope at some point, just forcing them to think about it, opens up some doors, and I think that's, it's one of those things you hope that they're digging into that, because I think when they have their emotional purpose in line, then the motivation follows, and it
also helps you figure out how to manage them and
Absolutely.
Work with them when you know what it is that gets them up and gets them.
You have to. I mean, I think that's crucial. That's key.
Do you know what my emotional purpose is, Joe?
Tell me.
It's donuts.
All right.
It's donuts.
I thought you were going to say Eliana and Dylan and
it's donuts. It's donuts. Edit that part out. But this is the Donuts Disability and Discourse podcast. Now, we are going to make our kids very jealous right now, because I know that our kids like to sit and watch my donut videos.
They do, actually.
All the time, but we are, again,
let's go nuts.
We're going to go nuts for these donuts here at Royal Donut in Parma. Joe, you picked the donut today. What donut are we sampling?
Well, I'm not a big sweet eater, but I picked glazed. Here's why. I think if a donut shop does a good glazed donut, you got a winner.
Donut shop. You know what? You're not the first guest that's actually said that exact same thing. So there may be a day when we judge every place by its glazed donut.
It's pretty boring, but I'm a traditionalist.
Let's dig in and sample them.
All right, thank you, sir.
Have in the bag. You're welcome, sir. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for
having me. This is awesome.
Without any further ado, that is good. You know what's interesting? I've probably been to this donut shop 20 times over the years.
Growing up on the east side, we had a place like this, and then
I've probably been here 20 times.
CVS now.
Everything up there but the glazed donut. Tell me what you think of it. It's like almost melts in your mouth.
It's perfect.
Really,
Royal Donuts. I have to bring the
Royal
crew out.
Donuts. You know what? Two
Making 'em
kings
nuts.
here at Royal Donut. There we go. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse. Rate, subscribe, and tune in next week for more Discourse and Donuts.